It was a day like any other for the crew of the Earth exploration vessel Orion. Captain Laura Evans stared out into the void of space from her command chair. The stars seemed endless, and the silence was overwhelming. Yet, something in the emptiness caught her attention, a strange signal, unlike anything the ship had encountered before. A flickering light on the ship's radar, distant yet persistent, drew their curiosity. "Commander, do you see this?" Laura asked, leaning forward as the blip appeared on the screen again. Commander James Thompson, the ship's lead science officer, studied the readings. "It's an unidentified signal, Captain. Not coming from any known planet or ship. It's almost like a distress beacon." "Could it be a trap?" Laura asked, her voice laced with caution. Thompson shook his head. "It's too weak to be a threat, but it's definitely something we should investigate." The crew had been on a long journey, charting uncharted systems at the far reaches of known space, so the prospect of finding something new was exciting. With a few swift commands, the ship altered its course toward the signal. As they approached the source, an unexpected sight appeared on the view screen. A planet, covered in dust and ash, with no signs of life. The surface was desolate, a world long abandoned by any civilization. However, the signal continued to pulse from deep within the planet's atmosphere. "Should we land?" Laura asked, her eyes fixed on the planet's surface. "We should, Captain," Thompson replied. "If there's a distress signal, there may still be survivors or something valuable to find." The Orion descended slowly, its engines humming as it navigated through the planet's thin atmosphere. As the ship neared the surface, the crew could make out ruins, broken structures scattered across a barren landscape. Tall, jagged mountains surrounded the area, casting long shadows over what was once a thriving world. The ship landed in an open area near the ruins. The crew prepared for an exploration mission, securing their gear and weapons in case of trouble. With a soft hiss, the airlock opened, and the crew stepped onto the dusty ground, the silence of the planet almost suffocating. "Stay close," Captain Laura ordered as she led the team toward the ruins. The air was thick with dust, and the skies above were a dull gray. The landscape looked as though it had been ravaged by a great war. Buildings half collapsed, streets buried under debris, and broken technology scattered across the ground. As they ventured further, the crew discovered something even stranger. They stumbled upon an underground facility, intact, despite the destruction above. The doors were still functional, and as they entered, they found rows of empty chambers, each one housing strange, alien technology. But there, in the farthest chamber, something caught their eye. In the corner of the room, hidden behind a pile of rubble, lay what appeared to be a group of beings. Tall, humanoid figures with delicate features and shimmering skin. They were unconscious, their bodies pale and frail. There were only a handful of them, but their presence was enough to send a ripple of shock through the crew. "What are they?" asked Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, her voice filled with awe and confusion. "These must be the inhabitants of the planet," Thompson murmured. "But they look different." Captain Laura stepped closer to one of the aliens, her breath shallow. The creature appeared to be breathing, but just barely. It was a female, her silver-blue skin barely visible beneath layers of dust and dirt. Her eyes were closed, and her long flowing hair cascaded across the floor, giving her an almost ethereal appearance. "She's alive," Laura whispered, "but barely. We need to help them." The crew quickly set to work, carefully moving the rubble aside and using their medical supplies to stabilize the survivors. The aliens were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, taller than humans, with graceful features and an aura of nobility, despite their weakened state. They had pointed ears, sharp features, and intricate markings on their skin, indicating a culture that was once far advanced. Once they were stabilized, the crew began to study the aliens' language and history, using their translation devices to communicate. They learned that these beings, who called themselves the Zolarians, had been a once great civilization, spread across many planets. But they were not the only ones in this galaxy. Another, far more dangerous empire had destroyed their world. As the Zolarians regained consciousness, one of them, a young woman named Alara, slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze locked with Laura's, and for a moment, there was an unspoken understanding. The aliens had lost everything: homes, families, and their very existence. "Why are you helping us?" Alara asked, her voice faint, but filled with a deep sense of curiosity. Captain Laura paused, glancing at her crew. "Because we know what it's like to lose everything. We're here to help, not to harm. You're not alone anymore." Alara's eyes sparkled with gratitude, yet a sadness lingered behind them. "We have lost so much, and yet you still offer us safety. Why?" Laura smiled gently. "Because that's what we do. We protect those who need help." As the crew continued to care for the Zolarians, they realized that humanity might have just found its first intergalactic allies, not just in the stars, but in their hearts. The abandoned alien race had found a glimmer of hope in the most unlikely of places, among the people of Earth. The crew of the Orion had settled the Zolarians into a secure area of the ship, offering them medical attention and the warmth of safety. Captain Laura Evans couldn't help but notice how different these beings were, so much taller than humans, with glowing skin that seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light of the ship. They were gentle, their culture and language beautiful but strange. Yet, as much as the crew tried to understand them, one question loomed above all. Who had done this to them? Who had destroyed their planet? It was Alara, the young Zolarian, who first shared the terrible truth. Sitting with Laura in the observation lounge, she began to explain. "Our people were once great explorers," Alara said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "We had colonies on several planets, peaceful lives with our allies across the stars. We valued knowledge, beauty, and unity. But something happened," Laura asked, leaning forward, her curiosity piqued. Alara nodded, her silver-blue eyes clouding with memories of a time long past. "Yes. An empire, a powerful force unlike anything we had ever seen, turned against us. The Terra Empire. They were ruthless, conquering world after world, enslaving and destroying everything in their path. We tried to resist, but we were too small, too spread out. They hunted us, wiped out our colonies one by one." Laura's heart sank as she listened. "And they destroyed your homeworld." "Yes," Alara whispered. "The Tsara Empire came, and they destroyed our cities, our history, everything we had built. We were forced to flee, to scatter. But they have always hunted us. My people, we are the last." Captain Laura stared at her, not sure how to respond. The stories of empires and destruction were all too familiar to humanity. Earth had seen its share of wars, but nothing like this. Nothing on this scale. "But you survived," Laura said, trying to offer comfort. "You made it to our ship." Alara gave a small, sad smile. "Yes, we survived. But only just. There are so few of us left." The truth of their situation was clear. The Zolarians were refugees, not just from a destroyed world, but from an ongoing war they could not escape. And the danger wasn't over. The Terra Empire would not stop until every last one of them was erased. Back on the ship, the crew was busy trying to understand the full scope of what they were dealing with. Commander Thompson had been working with the Zolarian technology, trying to decipher their advanced systems and weapons. "Captain," he called out one evening, his voice tense. "You need to see this." Laura and Alara rushed to the command center, where Thompson was hunched over a console. On the screen was an ancient star map, one that the Zolarians had left behind. "This is a map of their colonies," Thompson said, pointing to the glowing points across the stars. "But look here." He zoomed in on a part of the galaxy where a massive fleet of ships had been recorded. "This is where the Terra Empire is based. They'd been expanding for centuries, taking over worlds and wiping out civilizations that stand in their way. We've got to be careful. They'll come after us next, now that they know we've taken in survivors. Alara stiffened beside Laura, her expression grim. They've already found us. They have spies, trackers. They will stop at nothing to find the last of my people. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. The weight of their situation had just become far more real. They weren't just harboring refugees. They were holding the target of an empire that would not hesitate to destroy them all. How do we stop them? Laura asked, her voice tight with urgency. Thompson's eyes met hers. We can't face them head-on. Their fleet is too powerful, but there might be a way to slow them down, to give us a fighting chance. The Zolarians have technology we don't fully understand yet, but we can start by learning more. Maybe they have a weapon that could help us fight back. Alara looked up at them both, her voice steady but filled with the weight of her people's history. We have a weapon, she said quietly. A weapon capable of destroying entire fleets, but it is incomplete. Only the last of our leaders knew how to activate it, and they perished when the Terra Empire attacked. Then it's up to us to finish what you started, Laura said firmly. We'll help you find the missing pieces. Together, we'll stop the Terra Empire before they can do any more damage. Alara studied Laura for a long moment before nodding, her gaze full of uncertainty, but also hope. You would help us, even after everything we've lost. We're not so different, Laura replied with a soft smile. We both want to protect the people we love. If we can stop the Terra Empire together, we'll give your people a chance to rebuild. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. With that, Alara finally allowed herself a glimmer of hope. The humans, despite their own struggles, had offered them something invaluable, something that her people had longed for, a chance to survive, to fight back, and maybe, just maybe, to find peace once again. As the ship moved deeper into space, the reality of their situation settled in. The Terra Empire was coming, and now, the fate of both humanity and the last of the Zolarians rested in their hands. The time for survival was over. It was time to fight back. The crew of the Orion worked tirelessly over the next few days, trying to learn as much as they could from the Zolarians and their advanced technology. Captain Laura Evans knew that they were running out of time. The Terra Empire would be coming, and their fleet was far too powerful for humanity to face alone. But with the Zolarians' help, perhaps they could level the playing field. Laura gathered her team in the briefing room. Alara, along with a few of the other Zolarian survivors, stood with them. We need to move quickly, Laura said, looking around at the faces of her crew. The Terra Empire has spies everywhere, and if they find us, this ship could be destroyed in an instant. We need to be ready to fight back, but more importantly, we need to gather the missing pieces of Zolarian technology that can help us defeat them. Alara stepped forward, her graceful figure standing tall despite her weariness. Our weapon is ancient, she said softly. The Zolarian leaders developed it to defend against the Terra Empire, but only they knew how to activate it. Without them, we're stuck. We need to find these missing pieces, Thompson said, flipping through the data they had gathered. There's a planet in the nearby system, one of your old colonies, right? According to your maps, it was the center of your civilization before the attack. Alara nodded slowly, her silver blue eyes filled with sorrow. Yes, the planet of Stylaris. We had a research station there, where the weapon was developed. But the Terra Empire attacked it long ago. There may be nothing left, but it's our only hope. We have to go there, Laura said decisively. The sooner we find the missing parts, the sooner we can defend ourselves. The Orion set course for Stylaris, a planet that had once been a hub of Zolarian knowledge and technology. As the ship entered the atmosphere, the crew prepared for the worst. There were no signs of life on the planet's surface, only the ruins of a once thriving civilization. The skies above were a dull gray, and the ground below was littered with debris. It was clear that the Terra Empire had already ravaged this world. Laura stood in front of the crew, her gaze determined. "We'll be landing soon. Stick together, stay sharp. We don't know what we'll find down there, but we need to move fast." The landing was rough. The ship touched down in a desolate area, far from the old city. The crew exited the ship, scanning the area for any signs of life. The air was thick with dust, and the wind howled through the broken buildings. It felt like a graveyard, a world that had been abandoned to time. "Stay alert," Laura ordered. "Alara, lead the way. You know this place better than we do." Alara nodded, her face a mixture of determination and grief. "Follow me. The research station is a few kilometers from here. We'll need to pass through the ruins to get there." The journey was tense. As they moved through the decaying streets, the crew couldn't help but notice how silent everything was. There were no animals, no signs of life. It was as if the planet had been emptied, wiped clean of everything that had once made it a thriving hub of Zolarian culture. As they approached the research station, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The station itself was a large metallic structure, half buried under rubble and sand. There were signs of battle everywhere. Bird marks on the walls, shattered glass, and broken equipment scattered across the ground. "This is where it all ended," Alara whispered, her voice full of sadness. "The Terra Empire attacked, and we couldn't stop them." The crew began to search the station, carefully going through the wreckage. Thompson worked with the Zolarian survivors, trying to identify any useful technology that could aid their cause. But the task was difficult. Most of the station's equipment had been destroyed, and the central data core was in pieces. "Anything?" Laura asked, her eyes scanning the room as she moved through the station. Thompson shook his head. "Not much. But there's something here, a device. It looks like part of the weapon system. If we can find the rest of it, we might have a chance." "Where's the rest?" Laura pressed, eager to find the missing pieces. Alara approached a nearby console, her fingers brushing over the damaged surface. "It's scattered across the planet," she said quietly. "The Terra Empire knew about our weapon and took it apart. But there's still hope. I know of one more location where the final pieces might be hidden. A Zolarian vault deep underground. It's protected, hidden away from the enemy." "Then that's where we'll go next," Laura said, a sense of resolve settling over her. "We'll find it, no matter the cost." The crew prepared to head to the vault. They knew that the journey would be dangerous, that the Terra Empire could be closer than they realized. But one thing was certain. They were not going to stop. They would fight for the survival of both the Zolarians and humanity. Alara turned to Captain Laura, her expression filled with gratitude. "You would risk everything for us." Laura met her gaze and smiled. "We don't leave people behind. Not now. Not ever." With that, the crew set out once more, determined to find the final pieces of the weapon and stop the Terra Empire before they could destroy everything. The battle for the future of two species was about to begin. The Orion hovered above the surface of Tylaris, the planet's barren landscape stretching out in every direction. Captain Laura Evans and her crew stood together, preparing for their most dangerous mission yet. They were heading to a hidden vault, deep underground, where the final pieces of the Zolarian weapon might still be protected. The Terra Empire had left this planet in ruins, but there was still hope buried beneath the earth. According to Alara, the vault is located in an old military base, Commander Thompson said as he studied the map on his screen. "It's deep within a mountain range, hidden by natural formations. If the Terra Empire ever searched for it, they never found it." Laura nodded, her eyes hard with determination. "We're going in. The Zolarians are depending on us. We can't fail." Alara, who had been quiet for a while, spoke up. "I know the way, but the vault is well protected. There are traps. Defensive systems designed to keep intruders out. We will need to be careful." "We'll follow your lead," Laura assured her. The journey to the mountain range took several hours. The landscape grew more rugged as they approached their destination, with steep cliffs and dense forests covering the lower regions of the mountains. It was a stark contrast to the lifeless ruins they had passed through earlier. The mountains seemed to hide their secrets well, and the crew couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. As they neared the base's entrance, Alara led them into a narrow valley, flanked by towering cliffs. "This is where we need to be," she said, her voice steady but tense. "The entrance is hidden beneath a waterfall. If you didn't know where to look, you'd never find it." The crew moved quietly, knowing that time was of the essence. The waterfall cascaded down the side of the cliff, and as they approached, they noticed a strange pattern on the rock face. Alara placed her hand on a section of the stone, and with a soft hiss, the waterfall parted, revealing a dark tunnel behind it. "Welcome to the vault," Alara said, stepping forward. The group entered the tunnel, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The air grew colder, and the walls of the tunnel were lined with ancient Solarian symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. The path ahead was narrow, twisting, and winding deep into the earth. "This place feels ancient," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible. "How old is this vault?" "Very old," Alara replied. "The Zolarians built it long before the Terra Empire ever came into power. It was meant to protect our most valuable secrets, our weapon, our technology, our knowledge. Only those who knew the way could enter." They continued down the dark passage until they reached a large chamber. At the center was a massive door made of thick metal, covered in strange symbols and locks. Alara stepped forward and ran her hand along the surface, touching the hidden panel. "It's locked," she said, frustration creeping into her voice. "But there is a code. I know it, but it's been years since I last saw it." Laura stepped up beside her. "We don't have much time. Can you unlock it?" Alara nodded slowly, her fingers brushing the symbols on the door. "I can. Just give me a moment." As Alara worked, the rest of the crew kept watch. Thompson was scanning the surrounding area, eyes constantly shifting, alert for any sign of danger. The others stood ready, knowing that the Terra Empire could be on their tail at any moment. "Got it," Alara exclaimed as the door slowly began to slide open with a loud grinding noise. The crew tensed, weapons ready, but nothing happened. The door opened to reveal a massive room filled with rows of ancient Solarian technology. "This is it," Alara whispered in awe. "The heart of our people's power." The room was filled with long-forgotten machines, glowing with faint energy. There were weapons, data cores, and strange devices that hummed with potential. But in the center of the room, on a pedestal, sat the last piece of the weapon, a small crystalline orb. "This is what we've been looking for," Alara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The final piece of the weapon that can stop the Terra Empire." Laura stepped forward, reaching out to take the orb. But before her hand could touch it, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The crew spun around, weapons raised, as the sound of footsteps approached. "Get to the door," Laura shouted. "We're not alone." The crew scrambled to move, but it was too late. From the shadows, a group of Terra soldiers emerged, their armor gleaming in the dim light of the vault. They were armed and ready, their faces hidden behind menacing helmets. "You should not have come here," one of the soldiers said in a cold, mechanical voice. "This is our prize, not yours." The tension in the air was palpable. Laura's mind raced. The Terra Empire had found them, and now they were trapped. But she wasn't going to give up without a fight. Not now. "Ready yourselves," she said to her crew. "We're not leaving without that orb." A battle was about to begin, and the fate of both humanity and the Zolarians would be decided in the heart of an ancient vault on a long-forgotten planet. The Terra Empire might have arrived, but the crew of the Orion wasn't going down without a fight. The Terra soldiers closed in, their footsteps heavy against the stone floor of the ancient vault. Captain Laura Evans' heart raced, but her face remained calm. She knew that the odds were against them, but she also knew that they couldn't let the Terra Empire take the weapon. Not when humanity's future and the survival of the Solarians depended on it. Get into position, Laura ordered her crew. She motioned for Alara to stand back, her hand signaling to the others to take cover behind the old Zolarian technology scattered around the room. The Orion crew had trained for situations like this, but they had never faced an enemy like the Tsara Empire. The Tsara soldiers advanced, their dark helmets gleaming. They were tall, imposing figures, each one carrying a deadly weapon. But Laura could see the fear in their movements. They weren't sure what they were dealing with, but they knew they wanted it, and they weren't going to let the humans or Zolarians stand in their way. Laura's voice was steady, though her hands gripped her weapon tightly. "We hold this position," she said. "Thompson, cover the rear. Let's make sure they don't escape with the orb." Thompson nodded, his rifle raised, eyes scanning the room. "Understood, Captain." The Tsara soldiers advanced, but as they did, the Orion crew struck. A sudden flash of light broke the tension as one of the soldiers fell, a shot from the crew's weapons disabling his armor. The Tsara soldiers returned fire, their energy weapons lighting up the dimly lit vault, but the crew ducked behind the old technology and stone pillars, taking cover. "Move quickly," Laura shouted. She sprinted forward, dodging blasts as she ran toward the pedestal where the orb was located. Every step felt like a lifetime as the enemy's weapons tore into the air around her, but Laura was determined. If she could just reach the orb, she could protect it. And maybe, just maybe, they would have a chance to win. A soldier's blast hit the ground near her, sending a shockwave through the air, but Laura didn't falter. She dove behind a nearby stack of crates, her breath heavy. "We need to get to the exit," she called out to her crew. "We can't win this fight if we're trapped here." Thompson's voice crackled through the comms. "The back door is still intact, but we'll have to fight our way through." "We don't have a choice," Laura replied. "We have to take that orb and get out of here." The crew regrouped, their weapons raised and ready. The Tsara soldiers were relentless, advancing in perfect formation. The soldiers didn't seem to care about the Zolarian technology around them, only about the orb. They wanted the weapon, and they were willing to destroy everything to get it. Alara stood beside Laura, her eyes filled with determination. "I know how to get the vault systems working again," she said, her voice calm in the chaos. "If I can access the main terminal, I can trigger the vault's defense system. It'll buy us time." Laura nodded, recognizing the opportunity. "Do it. We'll cover you." Alara sprinted toward the central terminal, her movement swift and precise. She slid into the chair in front of the control panel and began typing in Zolarian code. Sparks flew from the damaged equipment as she worked, but she didn't hesitate. The Terra soldiers closed in, their weapons aimed at her, but Laura and Thompson provided covert fire, forcing the enemy to retreat. Come on," Laura muttered under her breath, watching Alara's every move. Alara's fingers flew over the terminal, her eyes scanning the glowing symbols on the screen. "Almost there," she whispered. "Just a little longer." The Tsara soldiers took cover, exchanging fire with the crew, but it was clear they were starting to panic. They didn't know what Alara was doing, but they could tell it was dangerous. One of the soldiers shouted an order, and the enemy advanced once more cautiously this time. Laura took a deep breath. "Get ready, everyone." Suddenly, the room was filled with a loud hum. The entire vault seemed to shake as Alara activated the vault's defense system. A brilliant blue light flooded the room, and a force field appeared around the central pedestal, where the orb sat. The Terra soldiers were pushed back, their energy blasts bouncing off the force field. "Yes," Alara exclaimed, breathing a sigh of relief. "The vault's defenses are online." The Tsara soldiers, caught off guard by the sudden barrier, began to retreat, their movements frantic. They had underestimated the strength of the Zolarian technology, and now they were caught in a race to get out of the vault before the defensive systems locked them in. But Laura knew they couldn't afford to let the Tsara Empire regroup. "We've got to move," she shouted. "Get to the back exit now." With the force field protecting the orb, the crew began to make their way toward the exit, weapons raised and alert. Thompson led the way, checking each corner before they moved forward. The vault's entrance loomed in the distance, and as they neared it, the hum of the defense system echoed in their ears. Just as they reached the exit, a few Tsara soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor, but the crew was faster. With one final push, the team sprinted to the exit and into the open air, their breathing heavy but triumphant. Laura turned back to look at the vault, knowing that Tsara Empire wouldn't give up easily. But for now, they had won. They had the orb, and with it, they had a chance to stop the Tsara Empire. "We made it," Laura said, panting, but a smile tugging at her lips. "Now we get ready for the next fight." The crew, battered but determined, knew their mission wasn't over. But with the orb in their possession, they had taken a critical step toward winning the war and securing the future of both humanity and the Solarians. Captain Laura Evans and her crew stood on the bridge of the Orion, gazing at the distant stars. The tension of the past few days weighed heavily on them, but there was something more pressing on their minds. The orb. With the Solarian weapon now safely in their hands, the next move was critical. Humanity and the Solarians had only one choice: work together to stop the Tsara Empire before they could strike again. "Where do we go from here, Captain?" First Officer Thompson asked, his voice calm but carrying an edge of worry. They had come so far, but they knew the fight was far from over. Laura turned to face him. "We need to get the orb to the Solarian Council. They have the knowledge to activate it properly. But getting there, that's another story." The Tsara Empire would not let them go without a fight. Laura knew they were already regrouping, planning their next attack. The Orion had only a slim chance of escaping the Tsara's forces. But this wasn't just about the Orion. It was about survival. "We'll have to make it through their blockade," Laura continued. "We know they'll be looking for us. Then we'll make sure they never find us," said Alara, the Solarian engineer who had become an invaluable part of their crew. She stood at the control panel, her fingers moving with practiced ease as she scanned the navigation systems. "I've been studying the Tsara's tactics. I think I can lead us through the asteroid field near Adrian. It'll be risky, but it's our best shot." Laura nodded. "All right. Set a course for Adrian. Everyone else, prepare for anything. We'll need to work together more than ever to get through this." The crew went to work, each of them knowing the stakes. Thompson checked their weapons, ensuring everything was in top condition. Lieutenant Harrington, the ship's medic, made sure everyone had enough supplies for the journey. They had no idea how long they might be in space before they could safely deliver the orb to the Solarians. As Alara input the final coordinates, a message came through on the communication system. It was from the Solarian leader, Commander Zarnak. "Captain Evans, this is Commander Zarnak. We've received your report and are preparing for your arrival. However, I must warn you, your actions have drawn the attention of the Tsara Empire. You will not be able to hide for long. We will do what we can to support you, but you must hurry. Time is against us." Laura's gaze hardened as she listened. The Tsara's wrath was unstoppable, but they had something the Tsara didn't: hope. And with that hope, they could make a difference. "Understood, Commander. We're on our way." The Orion slowly shifted into position, and with a hum of the engines, they jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars blurred into streaks of light, and the crew braced themselves. For the first time since they had been forced to flee their homeworld, there was a sense of urgency but also a strange sense of unity. Humanity, once divided, now stood with an alien race they had only just met. And in that alliance, there was strength. The journey to Adrian was tense. They avoided a few Tsara patrols along the way, but as they neared the asteroid field, the Orion was forced to rely on its evasive maneuvers. Alara's steady hands guided the ship through the dangerous field, narrowly avoiding giant rocks and debris. "Steady," Laura murmured. "We just need to get through this." "Almost there," Alara replied. Her eyes locked on the control panel. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. The Tsara had found them. "Brace for impact," Thompson shouted, his voice full of authority as the ship shook with the force of a near miss. "Prepare for battle," Laura ordered, her calm voice betraying none of her anxiety. "All hands to stations. We can't let them catch us." The Orion jolted again as Tsara fighter ships appeared on their radar. They were surrounded. "They're closing in fast," Thompson shouted, glancing at the tactical display. "We can't outrun them," Allura said, her brow furrowed. "We'll need to fight our way out." "Thompson, take the gunner station. We'll need everything we have to defend the ship," Laura said. "Harrington, get to the medical bay. If we're hit, we need to be ready." As the battle began, laser fire lit up the dark expanse of space. The Orion was agile, dodging most of the blasts, but the Tsara ships were relentless. One of the enemy ships managed to land a hit, causing a powerful jolt to shake the entire vessel. Sparks flew from the control panel, and Allura scrambled to stabilize the ship. "Captain," Allura shouted, voice tinged with urgency. "We've lost power to the rear shields. We need to pull back and find cover." Laura's heart raced, but she didn't hesitate. "Thompson, return fire. We need to buy time for Allura to fix the shields." The Orion turned sharply, moving behind an asteroid for cover. The Tsara fighters closed in, but Laura had an idea. "Prepare to deploy the countermeasures," she called to Allura. With a quick nod, Allura activated the ship's cloaking system. In an instant, the Orion disappeared from view, slipping into the darkness of space, hidden from the Tsara sensors. "Now," Laura barked, "let's get to the Zolarian fleet. They're our only hope now." The crew worked quickly, determined to make it to safety. They knew that Tsara were still out there, searching for them, but they had a small window of time to make their move. As the Orion continued its stealthy journey through space, Laura felt a moment of relief. They had survived this far, and now they just needed to get the orb into the hands of those who could help them stop the Tsara Empire once and for all. Time was running out, but the battle was far from over. The alliance of humanity and the Zolarians had just begun, and the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The Orion glided silently through space, its cloaking device keeping it hidden from the Tsara fleet. For now, the crew had a brief moment of peace, but they all knew it wouldn't last. The battle was still raging, and the Tsara Empire would stop at nothing to destroy them. Laura Evans stood on the bridge, her mind racing as she thought of the path ahead. "How long until we reach the Zolarian fleet?" Captain Laura asked, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. "Approximately 2 hours," Allura replied, her fingers dancing over the control panel. "But the Tsara fleet is still searching for us. We can't afford to make any mistakes." "We won't," Laura said firmly. "We've come this far. We just need to hold on a little longer." Her thoughts shifted to the Zolarian Council and the orb they carried. It was the key to stopping the Tsara, but they had to get it to the right hands. The Zolarians had been preparing for this moment for years, knowing that one day they would need to fight against the Tsara Empire. The orb held the technology that could turn the tide in the war, but it required activation. And the Zolarians were the only ones who knew how to do it. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by a soft chime. It was a message from the Zolarian leader, Commander Zarnak. "Captain Evans," Zarnak's voice crackled through the communication system. "We are aware of your situation. The Tsara fleet is closing in, and we have set a defensive perimeter around your course. But you must hurry. Once you arrive, we can begin the activation of the orb." Laura exhaled in relief. "Thank you, Commander. We're on our way." As the Orion continued on its path, Laura's mind raced with the implications of their next move. The Zolarian fleet was their last line of defense. If they could get to the fleet, they could stop the Tsara. If not, everything they had fought for would be lost. "I've been thinking," Thompson said, stepping onto the bridge, his expression serious. "What if we don't make it in time? What if the Tsara attack before we can reach the fleet?" Laura turned to him, her face hard with determination. "Then we fight. We make them understand that we won't back down." Thompson nodded, his expression steely. "I'll be ready." The crew had spent the last few days preparing for the worst. They had trained together, grown stronger as a team, and shared the same purpose. Humanity and the Zolarians might have been enemies once, but now they were allies in a fight for their very survival. As the Orion neared the Zolarian fleet, Laura could see the first signs of the defense perimeter. A series of massive ships, glistening in the darkness of space, created a formidable barrier against the Tsara. But Laura knew it wouldn't be enough. The Tsara were relentless. "Alara," Laura called. "Prepare the shields. We're going to need everything we've got." Alara's fingers flew over the control panel. "Shields at maximum. I also rerouted some of the energy to the main guns, just in case." "We won't need the guns if we can avoid a fight," Laura said. "But we'll be ready if it comes to that." Suddenly, the Tsara fleet appeared on their scanners. They had found them. The battle that ensued was unlike any they had fought before. The Tsara ships were fast and ruthless, their weapons powerful. But the Orion was quick, darting between asteroid fields and using the Zolarian ships as cover. They had no choice but to fight. The Zolarian ships fired their weapons, blasting Tsara ships out of the sky. But the Tsara were relentless. "Captain, we're losing power to the rear shields," Alara called out, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to make a run for it." "Hold on," Laura shouted. "We're almost there." Just as the Orion was about to break through the Tsara's blockade, a massive explosion rocked the ship. The bridge shook violently as sparks flew from the control panel. Alara worked quickly to stabilize the ship, but the damage was done. "We've been hit," Thompson shouted. "We need to make repairs, or we won't make it through." "Keep going," Laura ordered. "We can't stop now. We have to get to the Zolarian fleet." With every ounce of strength left in the Orion, the crew pushed forward. The Tsara were closing in, but the Zolarian fleet was finally within reach. Just as the Tsara were about to launch their final attack, a massive beam of light shot across the sky, striking the Tsara ships with devastating force. "It's the Zolarian fleet," Alara exclaimed. "They're using the orb's power." The Tsara ships faltered, their formations breaking apart as the Zolarian fleet unleashed the full might of the orb. The battle was over. The Tsara had been defeated. Laura breathed a sigh of relief, her body sagging with exhaustion. They had done it. The alliance between humanity and the Zolarians had held strong. The Tsara Empire had been stopped, and the galaxy was safe. For now. "We did it," Thompson said, a smile breaking across his face. Laura smiled back, though her eyes were tired. "We did, and we'll continue to fight for the future of our people." The crew of the Orion had come together as one, proving that when faced with impossible odds, the strength of unity could overcome even the greatest of enemies. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew this victory was just the beginning. The future of humanity and the galaxy was theirs to shape.